Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today is another episode of reviewing NHL teams so far, as today we got the Detroit Red Wings, which also means today is a very special episode as John from Off the Wall Hockey will be joining me later on. Also, one more quick note. It's not just Off the Hall Walkie that will be joining us. Pearlo Wisdom will also be joining us on the show, as it will be a three-way collaboration to talk about the Detroit Red Wings offseason and what he thinks the Detroit Red Wings did so great, because their offseason was absolutely fantastic. After a pretty rough season, to say, after having one of the worst seasons in the salary cap era, the Detroit Red Wings have kind of rebounded, and we're, of course, first up on the draft, because this was their biggest thing, right? The rebuild kind of just started last year with, of course, getting Mort Snyder on the team. This year, they added that big right-wing sniper in Lucas Raymond, who is definitely the potential future of this team. Right, you already have a great centerman in Dylan Larkin, and now you're going to be kind of building a team around Dylan Larkin. You add Lucas Raymond, right? Now you have Mantha, Bertuzzo, and Larkin to kind of build your team around. But there's been a lot that Yzerman has been doing to this Detroit Red Wings team, of course, the plethora of draft picks to the great signings that he did this past free agency day. It was terrific. Starting off with Sam Gagne being given a contract. And I know you guys are probably saying, why are you bringing up Sam Gagne? Well, Sam Gagne is just an underrated player just in general. I always love Sam Gagne. He's a great leader for your team. Either he's playing down in the minors for you, or he's playing up in the NHL. He's a guy that's going to help you go through a big rebuild that the Detroit Red Wings are in right now. Sam Gagne was there from day one of the rebuild to almost the ending of the rebuild of the Edmonton Oilers. So Sam Gagne, he's been up and down through tons of teams as well. So I think this is a great deal. Then you get a ton of AHL players, like you got Kevin Boyle, goalie, Riley Barber, Adam Ernie you signed back. Just a lot of nice cheap players to build in that AHL roster. But the biggest moves, John Morrell. We'll start off with him. John Morrell is a very smart defensive option. He is a defensive defenseman, will help out that top six core, as you guys can see here, right? John Morrell will be a perfect guy to go up with a Dennis Cholowalski, right? And John Morrell is absolutely perfect for that, and especially for what, 900 grand? That's cheap as fuck for an especially good defenseman like John Morrell. Bobby Ryan, just a perfect right-handed shot. He's been a goal scorer before. He's scored 20 goals. He's just had some rough seasons in his past. Will he be able to rebound? I'm not too sure. He is 33 years old, but this is a massive trading piece for the Detroit Red Wings. If Bobby Ryan has a good season and then the Detroit Red Wings are not that great, and we know they're not going to be that great, you could dump this guy off for maybe a third, fourth, fifth, whatever, right? Maybe even a second if he's performing really well. You could be able to get Bobby Ryan off your team very easily, especially for that $1 million deal. And it's a smart move by Bobby Ryan. You have a year to kind of go and give yourself some resurgence in Detroit, make yourself a good name, and then maybe some playoff teams might start looking at you and pay you a nice pretty penny. Troy Stetcher, 1.7, absolute steal. I don't know what Vancouver was doing, but Troy Stetcher is slowly improving every single year as a defenseman, and he's just a great, capable shutdown defender as well. And playing alongside of Marc Stahl, who they picked up from the New York Rangers, an absolute steal of a trade. I mean, not a steal of a trade, but for future considerations for a second and Marc Stahl, that's pretty damn good for the Detroit Red Wings, picking up a pretty solid defenseman in Marc Stahl, a guy who that they could probably retain and dump him off to another team, is a smart way to go here for the Detroit Red Wings. They've done a lot of smart stuff with this team, kind of building it up from the ground up. And where did my signings go? We'll go over to Yzerman. But they have done a lot of smart moves over this past free agency that have really impressed me. Adding Thomas Greiss, that adds another really good goalie alongside of Jonathan Bernier. And Thomas Greiss had a great year with the New York Islanders. He honestly did. Great playoffs. He was stellar. I mean, he only played 4 games, but Thomas Greiss is a really good goalie when he is given the time. I mean, he's had 2 great years. I'm pretty sure he won the William Jennings that year, right? Thomas Greiss is a good goalie, and that's going to be a perfect tandem alongside of Jonathan Bernier. And it's not too bad of a deal for Thomas Greiss, another 2-year deal. Nemestankanov adds another offensive piece to the team, who has formerly scored 20 goals. He's formerly been a pretty good offensive guy. Now he's going to be playing along with Fabro, Nemestankanov, and Bobby Ryan, which might be a pretty underrated second line, right? I mean, if Fabro kind of gets himself going and he actually kind of has his own resurgence, it won't be a bad idea. Did they really pay him? Oh, man. They paid him a pretty good amount of money. But, I mean, he did have a pretty good season offensively. 14 goals, 17 assists. He did have a pretty good year. But, yeah, the Detroit Red Wings honestly had a very good offseason. You look up and down the roster. Yeah, this team still looks like shit. But the biggest thing is their prospects. Their prospects, right? You fill up this roster so you don't have to play a lot of the young guys. And you might be seeing Gagne or Dmitry Timoshov later on this year. Maybe you might see Lucas Raymond. But with the Yzerman, we probably won't be seeing that. Philip Zadina as well. He had a great season as well. Not the greatest, of course, but he's definitely developing into a player that might turn out to be a pretty damn good goal scorer for the Detroit Red Wings. So hopefully he starts coming into himself. That was a really big draft pick for them. But they do got a lot of good prospects right now here in Detroit, and we know that this team is not going to be good this year. They're not going to be good next year. They're not going to be good at the year after that. They're going to keep rebuilding. They're going to keep going. They're going to keep building up their picks until they know they have a good chance. And I can see this team being in the playoffs in 3 to 4 years down the road. Right near the end of Larkin Mantha's contract, you're going to probably see this team start kicking it up in the high gear, especially with Lucas Raymond. Who knows what they're going to draft next year. There's going to be a plethora of big defensemen. So there's going to be a lot of moves the Detroit Red Wings can do. But I'm going to end this part here. We're going to be jumping off to the interview with Off the Wall Hockey. And I hope you guys enjoy that. Oh, before I jump into the interview, though, I forgot to give it my rating for the Detroit Red Wings. So I'm going to give the team an A+. I think they did absolutely fantastic for a rebuilding team going into this offseason, signing Nemestankanov, Bobby Ryan, players who they can flip for a decent amount of picks, especially with how the draft should be next year. A lot of big-time defensemen that could potentially be the future of the Detroit Red Wings. So I think what they have done is very, very smart. Picking up Thomas Greiss, Nemestankanov, Ryan, Morrell. They've picked up a lot of smart players, especially Troy Stetcher is the one that really got me more happy for the Detroit Red Wings. So, yeah, let's finally jump into the interview and see what he thinks and what grade he gives the Detroit Red Wings. Hello, everyone. We are back, and I am with Pearlo Wisdom. Check out his channel. It's an absolutely amazing hockey content. And new on the channel, we got John from Off the Wall Hockey. Also, make sure to go check out his channel. There's some amazing content on there. How's it going, guys? We'll start off with Pearlo. How's your day going, my main man?
It's going fantastic. I didn't see this. I talked to you yesterday when I found out this opportunity was out there. I'm like, friggin' yeah, this is gonna be great, man. Are you kidding me? I'll turn some tables over and tell people I'm not going nowhere. I'm doing this. Forget that. This is great, man.
Off the Wall Hockey, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Really glad to be here, man. It's awesome to finally get to do some collab work with you, man.
Yeah, I've been really excited about this. I've been waiting all weekend, and we get to talk about a very exciting team today, the Detroit Red Wings, who I gotta say I think had one of the best off seasons as a rebuilding team. And it's very hard to say that because when you see teams rebuilding, you usually see them at their worst moments, and you usually see them make really bad moves. But the Detroit Red Wings, I had nothing to complain. I wish the Edmonton Oilers did this, for Christ's sakes, when we were building our team and not signing Andrew Ference and these bums that just made the locker room worse. The Detroit Red Wings made some incredible moves to make the locker room better, even for a rebuilding team. They brought in a lot of leadership. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the draft, of course, the biggest thing for the Detroit Red Wings, and them picking up Lucas Raymond. We're going to start off with Off the Wall Hockey. What do you think of the Detroit Red Wings draft, and where do you think Lucas Raymond is going to fit for the future of this Detroit Red Wings squad?
I think Raymond was a great pick. I'm a big fan of this guy, and this pick just screamed Stevie Y all over it. Like Stevie Y loves, Swedish guy, very smart player, two-way player, can perform at both ends of the ice, and Stevie Y we know loves those kind of guys, and he just. You have Dylan Larkin there, who's your centerpiece down the middle. You are building this team around Dylan Larkin. You bring in a guy like Raymond, who certainly probably is going to stay in Sweden, I think, for this year, but is going to be in this Red Wings lineup very, soon, in another couple years probably. He's going to come in, play the wing. I think you're gonna play him in your top six right away, and just he can bring so much creativity and offense to it while still being a defensively responsible player, solid skater, and just very smart player who's already playing against men in Sweden, which I really like those guys a lot. I think that's something that is kind of overlooked sometimes, but you can light it up in junior, but how many of these junior players have we seen come in that were putting up 100 plus points in juniors, and then they get to the NHL and they can barely crack the third line? When you see these European guys come in who have been playing against men in Europe, they're a lot of times more ready to play against men in the NHL than some of the junior kids who are just, playing against other 16, 17, 18-year-olds. So I love the Raymond pick. I love Raymond as a player. I think he's going to be a really good top six winger for them. And Detroit just, man, they're building something here. They're building something that it's a few years away, but they are going to be good down the line.
Yeah, especially I remember Elias Pettersson. Like when someone lights it up in the SHL, they're going to be a future Hall of Famer at least. We've seen Peter Forsberg do it. Then we've seen Pettersson. We've seen the Sedins. We've seen a lot of good players come out of the SHL. Now Pearlo, they have made a lot of other good picks as well in this draft, picking up Jan Bednar, who future starting goaltender, William Wallander. How do you think the rest of their draft went? And especially for next year too, they have a lot of picks. So what do you think is the big future for the Detroit Red Wings for drafting and even this year?
I'll speak a little bit. It's no surprise that somebody as intelligent as Stevie Y puts so much emphasis on intelligence. He's going to draft intelligent players, and Raymond is everything that. His IQ is insane, and same as the next guy you just mentioned, Wallander. I had Wallander very high, higher than a lot of people had other defensemen. I liked him a lot. I think he's a bit of a project, but again, he's got that intelligence level that he'll find a way through. And I think that's the reason why he likes to go with Swedes a lot in this thing. They're very, education is high there. They really, really highly lift up education. It's very important. And he also goes with college players a lot for that very reason. He likes players that put an emphasis on being intelligent in their overall life. So, yeah, I loved. Who am I to say? I actually had Askarov in Detroit's spot, but you know how high I was with Askarov. I don't know if I told you about that before. I think he's may end up being the best guy there. But am I going to argue with Stevie Y? No. No.
You know what? Stevie Y is very smart with his drafting. He's been smart with his drafting ever since he was with Tampa Bay. Like this guy, I think you look at any other guy, he's one of the best GMs for the past decade now, even with Tampa Bay and stuff like that. So we'll jump towards free agency, which was pretty big for Stevie Y. Of course, he made that deal for Marc Stahl. And I like to ask Pearlo, we'll start with you. How do you think of this Marc Stahl deal, and what type of, I guess, leadership will it bring for the Detroit Red Wings?
Interesting. I think it was more for the draft pick than the actual player, but I get it as for the player too, because Stahl is a warrior. He has been a warrior his whole life, his whole career. And for that reason, he's actually barely an NHL player right now because he's just been so beat up. I mean, I don't think there's too many players that have blocked more shots than Stahl, especially when Tortorella was there and turned the Rangers into the best shot blocking team of all time, I believe. I don't think there was ever a team that made it to the finals as an emphasis on shot blocking like that. And he was a leader in that. So he's going to bring this warrior mentality to the Detroit dressing room, as you were mentioning before this started. What he brought to the dressing room, there was murmurs about there being a dressing room problem in Detroit last year. So how does Stevie Yzerman go about doing it first? And another thing, Stahl is squeaky clean, man. The guy does everything professionally. He's not a partier in any way. He is a workman-like guy who's going to show these guys what it means to be a professional, whether he's on the ice or not. And he's going to push everybody to be the best that he can be. I think Stahl, considering the fact that I think primarily he did it to get the second round pick, you got a pretty damn good character guy in return that you can have for a year, so people can see some players there that may not understand what it means to compete can see a guy that definitely competes with every inch that he has. So.
Now, what do you think on that, John? Because I was seeing some rumors even, and do you think, like, with this Marc Stahl deal, do you think they would maybe flip him for some more picks at trade deadline and retain a bunch of his salary cap and go to a really good playoff team?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, but I agree with everything that Pearlo said about Marc Stahl. When you're a rebuilding team, these are the exact kinds of guys that you want to bring in. And I think the bringing in Bobby Ryan in free agency is another great move that's similar to that. I love that move as well. But, Marc Stahl is just a guy who's going to come in and show these young kids the right way to do things and the right way to go about being a professional hockey player. And that's a valuable thing to have in a young locker room with a rebuilding team. And then, you get to trade deadline time. He's had a few months with all of these kids. He's taught them a lot of things. You can send him off to go be a seventh defenseman or number 6 defenseman to an actual contending team, and you can get another draft pick back for him. And I think, Stevie Y is such a good GM. That's probably already crossed his mind 1,000 times. And I'm sure that there's a plan there as far as Yzerman goes, is what he's going to do with him. But just overall, I think it's a great move and a savvy move to get the draft pick, bring in a veteran guy who was a cap dump for another team, and then you have the chance to flip him again at the trade deadline this coming season and get another draft pick out of it, while also getting that mentorship of Stahl in the locker room for the first half of the year. Just a brilliant move no risk move for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, and you were just talking about Bobby Ryan, and I thought that deal was absolutely amazing. 1 year, $1 million, a guy who has went through a lot over this past couple of years, especially with the Ottawa Senators, has went through absolutely everything. This is a great deal for the Detroit Red Wings, especially for their locker room, everything, even a potential 20-goal scorer out of the guy too. So what do you think on the move for that, John?
That was one of my absolute favorite moves of the entire offseason. I was jumping out of my seat when I saw this deal get made. Like, talk about a perfect situation for the perfect guy for the Red Wings to bring in this situation where you have all of these young guys. You have a veteran guy who, when Bobby Ryan came into the league, he was the best thing since sliced bread. He was a hot ticket when he came into the league. He was a star player with Anaheim, put up all kinds of goals, all kinds of points. And then, he ended up moving around a little bit, ended up in Ottawa, and then obviously went through everything that he's gone through over the years, and that we really just got brought out to the limelight last year with his personal battles and everything he went through in Ottawa. And you just talk about a story of like perseverance and never giving up and just, fighting your own demons and doing what it takes to get better, make yourself a better person, make yourself a better player, make yourself a better teammate, all of that. And then you add that life experience and all of those hardships into a locker room full of younger players. I mean, it's the perfect situation where Bobby Ryan is going to have a chance now to instill a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience and a lot of teaching moments onto these younger players for the Red Wings. He is the perfect guy to have in that locker room. And another just great leadership move from a Detroit standpoint at a very low cost at just 1 year, $1 million.
Which would be perfect for even flipping picks if Bobby Ryan kind of has a resurgence.
Yeah.
No, that's very rare because he is 33 years old. But if he does light it up, then hell, you could get a good couple picks from him, maybe a good prospect, help out that rebuilding for the Detroit Red Wings. Now, Pearlo, what do you think of the Bobby Ryan move? And do you think you would see maybe Bobby Ryan get back up to that 20, 25 goals that he used to be at?
Well, I mean, as a person that kind of had the same struggles as him a little bit in my life, I think it's amazing. There has been a talk in Detroit, like I said, that there was issues in some areas. And if Bobby Ryan can go in there and help these young guys out and say, hey, you know what? This is what I did, and this is what you're doing. And maybe you don't want to go down that road. Just that alone would be amazing. I love Bobby Ryan. Everybody loves Bobby Ryan. Anybody who talks about Bobby Ryan, even though he had his issues, said he was one of the greatest guys you can meet. He's a fantastic human being. And do I think he can get that? I mean, heck, if he could do what he was doing with the struggle, now that he's not in that, why not? Why can't he get 20, 30 goals? He was able to score 20, 25 goals with a substance abuse problem. So without it, why can't he do it? I mean, he very well could be. And I think he's very aware that he could be flipped somewhere else. He took something where he probably has a heart for some people in Detroit and went there and said, okay, I'll do that and I'll improve myself. And if I got to go somewhere else and get my cup, I will. That's the one that I really do think that would definitely take the picks. Stahl, there might have been an agreement that doesn't happen. He has a family and stuff like that, but maybe not. But him, I think he'd be happy if he got an opportunity at this stage of his career after ever he's been through to go for a cup somewhere. So it was an absolute, totally with John on this. I think it might have been the best move of the summer. We've seen a lot of GMs bring in guys for the purpose of flipping them, but not only does Stevie Yzerman do it, he brings it with even a higher purpose than that. He even takes it to a higher level. Absolute genius. I just think it's brilliant.
Now we'll move on to another big move for the Detroit Red Wings, which was picking up Troy Stetcher. And I'm still absolutely stunned on why the Vancouver Canucks kind of gave him up, especially after they lost Tanev. Because Troy Stetcher is looking like a pretty good damn defenseman for how young he is, and especially for dealing with what he did in Vancouver. What do you think is the future of Troy Stetcher on the Detroit Red Wings? We'll start off with Pearlo. What do you think of Troy Stetcher signing with the Detroit Red Wings?
Oh, what a great opportunity for Troy. I think they're filling out their defense and waiting for their young players to move up. I doubt that Stetcher is in their highest plans, but I don't know how much upside that Troy has now. I think his career is probably going to be somewhere in the 5 to 7 range on most teams and travel around a little bit, but possibly not. And that's what makes this such a great trade, is that it's possible that Troy even takes it. He was never supposed to be where he got with Troy Stetcher. He was never supposed to get to where he did now. So for me to say that even is only using my own mind. I never would have thought Stetcher was as good as he is now. So what is he going to be another year or two? Probably more than I ever thought he was. Again, he's a guy that just keeps on getting better no matter what the odds say that he has. So again, I think it's a great pickup for people to see a guy who's obviously worked his butt off to get get to where he can at this very moment.
John, what do you think about the Troy Stetcher signing?
No complaints from me. I like it. Detroit's defense can't get any worse than what it was last year. So, you bring in a guy from Vancouver who's played on some, at least last year played on a really good Vancouver team, and I look at him kind of as a bottom pair guy on most teams, but then he's 26 years old, and you have the chance where maybe he has a couple of really good seasons where he does play at a top 4 level, and you've got not a whole lot else there as far as the defense goes with the Red Wings. Obviously, Filip Hronek is kind of the guy right now, and then they've got some younger guys coming up who should be ready soon. But he could very well play a top 4 role on that team this coming season. I think on most teams you'd want him kind of as a 5-6 type guy, but he's a guy who's smaller defenseman who's worked his butt off to get to the NHL and now is working his butt off to stay in the NHL. And I just think it's another one of those guys that just has such a great work ethic and such a great attitude that those are the kind of guys you want in your locker room, and they're continuing to bring in those kinds of players. And he's got a chance. He's got a chance here with Detroit to show that, maybe he can reach a higher level than what he has at this point. He's certainly going to get minutes on that blue line. He's not going to be relegated to playing, 14 minutes a night in Detroit. He's probably going to be playing 18 minutes a night with the Red Wings. So maybe even a couple more than that. So I look at Stetcher as a guy who is a solid, depth guy in any roster in the NHL, but certainly with the Red Wings is going to get a bigger opportunity than he would somewhere else, and really has a chance to take advantage of that and show how good of a player he can be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nemestankanov, one of their last big signings there, $2 million for 2 years. I think it was a really smart deal picking up Nemestankanov. He showed excellence for offense when he was in Tampa Bay, and then he's kind of bounced around throughout the NHL. Do you think Nemestankanov, because he's looking like he's going to be probably the second line centerman, how well do you think Nemestankanov will play in Detroit? We'll start off with John.
He's an interesting player and a really tough one to gauge because there are times where he looks like he can really bring it and become a really good middle six type player. And then there are other times where it feels like he just mails it in and really doesn't care and just kind of checks out. And he's got a lot of defensive zone struggles sometimes, but he always has that skill and that offensive ability to put points on the board. And he's an interesting guy. I think the spectrum of how good or how not good he could be with the Red Wings is really, really wide. A team with low expectations, there's really no pressure on him there in Detroit. He could be a legitimate, top second line, top 6 guy who could put up maybe 50 points in a season. Or on the other end of things, because they're not a winning team, there's a chance he could just mail it in and check out and say, I'm done with this and just kind of stink, which we've seen him do in the past, depending on the situation, where if he's not getting the playing time or the role in the lineup that he necessarily wants, he kind of has a bit of an attitude about it. And I think that's eventually what got him out of Tampa Bay, was he wasn't playing very high in that lineup, and they didn't have a roster spot high in that lineup for him. So he got kind of a little ticked off about that. But he's an interesting player. He's shown signs that he could be really, really good. He's shown other signs that he's maybe attitude wise isn't all there. And I think it's just going to be such a toss-up with him in Detroit, whether he decides I want to play for a big contract and put up big numbers, or I'm on a lousy team that isn't going to win and I'm just here collecting a check. It could go either way with him.
Now, Pearlo, what do you think of Nemes Dankenov? And do you think the Detroit Red Wings would be able to kind of fix his kind of behavior problems?
Well, I mean, it's here we go from Ottawa to wasn't he in Ottawa? He was in Tampa. He was in New York,
New York, Ottawa, to Colorado at the end of last year.
To Colorado at the end of last year. I couldn't remember the order, but something like that. So that's like, and he's only like 27, I want to say, right? I'm not looking on there, and I don't have Cap Friendly in front of me. So that's a lot of teams to bounce around at, so it obviously there's a problem. We have that right off the bat. And when you watch him on the ice, like I've said with John and I don't know if there's ever a time we'll ever disagree with each other. That'd be interesting. We never seem to disagree about anything. When you watch him on the ice, he looks like like he looks like he could be. He's kind of like the Kovalev of now, except maybe not quite as skilled, but he has the type of talent that could be a point of game producer out there. He just from one shift to another, actually, it can look like he's going bada to heck. And John, who does play-by-play for the games and stuff like that, probably knows this more than anybody, because you're watching each player all the time, and you say, wow, what a great play by Nemestankanov, and he worked in the boards a little bit, and he does this. And the next time he's out by the red line picking his nose. Like, he's aggravating. So can they change it in Detroit? Well, we have, if the people that they just brought in there, Stahl, can't shake it out of him, I think this is last chance. If he doesn't do it in Detroit and he pisses people off there with the character that they brought into this lineup now, I don't know if anybody's going to give him another chance, honestly. I know you need offense in your room, but I think his name is getting out there to be like, this guy's a problem. If they can tune him in, and he can be like a 0.6 point per game player by the time the trade deadline comes out, they might be able to squeeze a fifth or sixth out of him or something like that. That would be nice. I think they would be happy for that. But if for some reason Stahl shakes them the right way, or one of these players is able to get him thinking, hey, this could be really good. You have a career in front of you that is fantastic. If you just forget about all this stuff and do this, whatever this stuff is, I don't know what it is, and put your game towards this. Like I said, he could be a point of game player. So it's a no risk play. It's a no risk play. And they've got some centers coming up that should be ready pretty quick. So if he's not working out, then there you go. He's on to another team, maybe not in the NHL.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like sometimes I remember seeing, like, watching teams that had Nemestankanov when I was watching the Oilers facing them, and I really don't remember very much of Nemestankanov out there sometimes. Like sometimes you feel like you never see him, and then sometimes you feel like you're really meant to see him. Like he's battling for the puck and he's doing the hard stuff, but then he's lazy. And we see that with a lot of those Russians sometimes, where they go to the rebuilding teams to get more ice time, and then sometimes they just dip back to the KHL. So we'll have to see what Nemestankanov does and if he's able to really start putting up the points. But we'll get into the final thoughts of the Detroit Red Wings, and you guys can give them the grade. I gave this team, I think, an A on the Detroit Red Wings because of the offseason they had. It was a terrific offseason, terrific rebuilding year. Even going into next year where they still have three second-round picks, a first, they have 2/3. They have a lot of picks going into next year's draft, especially since they still have a lot of veterans they could trade away. What's your final thoughts with the Detroit Red Wings? We'll start off with Pearlo.
I gotta give it an A too after all the gloating I just did for what these specific pickups. That it's one thing to pick up players you can turn for draft picks. It's another thing to take it up a notch and specifically get players that fill a character need on your team, on a team that's coming up like that. Like it's so well planned out. I think they're probably a couple years away. They know that. I love the way Stevie Yzerman doesn't make any projections of when they're going to be. Unlike in Ottawa, where they're saying in 2 years we're going to be a cup contender, or something like that. Stevie Yzerman's like, I don't know. I'm going to let these guys grow. He doesn't put any pressure on his young players. He lets them build. He's got Maurice Seider, who a lot of GMs maybe already might play them next year. I bet you he doesn't. He may push his way on the lineup. It's possible. But with Stevie, you don't think he's like that's probably going to be the case. His overall philosophy that he built into Tampa, he's building in here. And I would be, even if I didn't think I liked a move that he did, and maybe Nemestankanov might be one of those things that I'm not really a fan of. It's hard. He has put himself in a position where it's like, who am I? Stevie Y. Like, you're amazing, dude. So you get an A until otherwise. That's what I say there. I pretty much give him an A for everything until proven otherwise. And so far, it's like, yeah, I give him an A too. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't think Stevie Yzerman has ever had like a really, really bad offseason. It always feels like he just makes one big blockbuster deal, and then it's like, wow, like I'm stunned. So John, what's your final thoughts of the Detroit Red Wings offseason?
Yeah, I got to give him an A as well. They didn't do anything that I didn't like. Even a guy like Nemestankanov, who I may not be a huge fan of, it was such a no risk move. If it doesn't work out, who cares? You can just dump him off somewhere else and get a pick for him, or he can just go to to go to the KHL or something. But they're not at a point where they're going to compete or be a playoff team this coming season. They know that. They're smart enough to know that. I think that's such a roadblock for so many teams in the NHL where they just won't accept that they're not a playoff team. And Detroit's, I think, finally gone. Like, they know where they are, and Stevie Y knows where he is. And listen, they're not going to make the playoffs this year. They're not trying to make the playoffs this year. They're building for the long-term future so that hopefully they can go another, 25 straight years of making the playoffs when they are ready. And he's giving his young players time to develop, time to grow, continuing to bring in, they have tons more draft picks, this coming draft. They're continuing to add to that prospect pool and bring in young guys. And the veteran guys that he does bring in, guys like Marc, Stahl, guys like Bobby Ryan, they're character guys who are good for the locker room and will help the young players become professionals. There's nothing not to like about what they've done with their offseason. And it's going to be a process. It's going to take a few years before we finally see this rebuild come to fruition and see the kind of team and organization that he has built. But when it does get there, I think we're going to see again, like what we saw in Tampa, they're going to become one of the top teams. And it's just a process of building that. They're still kind of at the earlier stages of building that. He didn't go out and do anything stupid. He didn't give any bad contracts away. We've seen rebuilding teams do that all the time. Buffalo. And he doesn't do stuff like that. So another A for Stevie Y. They just he knows exactly how to build a team from a bottom feeder like what he got in Tampa Bay when he first started there, up to being a Stanley Cup level team, which Tampa Bay is now, and the Red Wings are hoping to be down the line in the future. So until he proves me wrong by doing something not intelligent, which I don't think is going to happen, can't give Yzerman anything but an A for this offseason.
Stevie Y, I got to give it to him. He's one of the best rebuilding GMs I think we've ever seen out of the entire history of the NHL. I don't think we've ever seen him rebuild a team as fast as what he did in Tampa Bay, and especially bring in the good players like Braden Point, for example. What a steal, right? Like, Stevie Y is a great GM. I'm really excited to see what the Detroit Red Wings will do, especially since they're not in the same division as the Edmonton Oilers, so I don't have to worry about them as much. But their future is looking great. I'm really excited to see how well the Detroit Red Wings will do. Thank you guys for joining. Check out Pearlo Wisdom and Off the Wall Hockey. They have great hockey channels. Make sure to go check them out. And we're going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Adios, amigos.